there's a ton of hours, ton of effort and energy into going into preparing people for hearings. So,
Right.
you know, I'm not interested personally in dragging cases out
Right.
in order to maybe make more money, but are you really making more money if you break it down by per hour of the expense? And so that's
Right.
what I say to people. I don't know. I mean, if you've I don't know if you've gotten that question repping clients, but do you say something similar or do you have a whole different take on it?
Welcome to the Evans Disability Podcast. We hope to be your definitive guide through the Social Security Administration landscape. I'm Peter Evans, your host and managing partner at Evans Disability, a law firm that handles disability cases throughout the United States. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to mention a special resource for our listeners. Click the link below to receive a free SSA disability guide from Evans Disability. This guide is packed with details on SSA disability programs, expert tips for winning your case, and sample questions from actual disability hearings. Join me as I sit down with special guests, including experienced lawyers, our extremely well-trained staff, and even a former Social Security law judge. If you find our content useful, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on our latest discussions. I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
The judge would be willing to find the claimant disabled, but there would be no back benefits. It's very important that the claimant realize that their attorney may have a conflict of interest if they're suggesting that they stick with an earlier onset. Does that make sense?
Oh, of course. It's a great point. I think there's a couple questions we get. That's one of them. And I'd like to talk about how our firm kind of handles that. We let the individual lawyer who's representing the claimant have the conversation with the claimant.
Right.
And there's when that happens, there's no conflict of interest in our firm because the lawyers that represent our clients, they get paid whether they win or lose, and it's the same amount,
Right.
where and so your honor, when you represent clients, you're not worried about the fee because what you're getting paid for that hearing or that day or right that
It's a flat fee.
just yeah, for us, and then it's a or, if some of our lawyers, are on salary in-house, and they'll do hearings, so there's not that conflict. I think the other thing too is like for me, so now me, who, manages the firm, and obviously we wanna be successful financially.
Right.
I would always just say it's 100% up to you, to the client. Like, here's the advantages, the disadvantage. You're not gonna get it back,
Exactly.
but you're gonna get the month to month, you know? This is 100% your decision, you know? Uh,
That's the most important part of that conversation is explaining to them the consequences of the decision, whichever way they go, because it's their decision. It really is, and a lawyer has no right. A lawyer can recommend for good reason if it appears that the judge is going to turn down the claim if they don't compromise. A lawyer can certainly tell the client that would be a potential consequence. And yes, there may be an appeal, but that could take 2 or 3 more years, during which the claimant could be receiving benefits. So I'm kind of digressing, but I think that's something for claimants to be aware of.
no, and I think it's important because, you know, in one of the questions, I think in one of our videos, in one of the comments, they asked, like, well, isn't it a conflict of interest? And this was the second part that comes up. Isn't it a conflict of interest for the lawyer to drag out these cases so they can get a bigger fee?
Yes.
And, what say you, Mr. Evans, to that question? And I kind of answer it like this, as someone who's both an attorney and a business owner. First and foremost, we have a fiduciary duty to our clients to look out for their best interest. We have an ethical obligation to do that when we took an oath as a lawyer. But also, as a business owner, there's no I'm not incentivized to drag cases on for year after year after year. There's a fee cap of $9,200, right? And I always ask people, like, look, would you ask me the question? If I was to give you $1,000 today after you've done, maybe we did the application and appeal and help gather a bit of evidence, or $9,200 5 years from now after you've put in 100 hours of work into my case, I'll always take the smaller amount of money today.
Yeah.
Because as these cases go along, it's not like we're not working on the cases. It ends up we have to invest more money into working on these cases for longer hours, right?
Right.
So I want to win cases at an application and reconsideration. I love it, right? But when they go to hearing, there are a ton of man hours. Not to mention lawyers, they want to get paid too, right?
Yeah.
Staff, we don't run a nonprofit. These folks need to get paid, right? We have to create money, and there's a ton of hours, ton of effort and energy into going into preparing people for hearings. So,
Right.
I'm not interested personally in dragging cases out
Right.
in order to maybe make more money. But are you really making more money if you break it down by per hour of the expense? And so that's what I say to people. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you've gotten that question repping clients, but do you say something similar, or do you have a whole different take on it?
Well, no, I generally agree with you, Peter, but the way I usually present it to the claimant is, look, you're not able to work, you're out of a job, you're not likely to be able to find another job. You've got a family to support, you got a mortgage to pay, you got a car payment, you got all these bills that are stacking up, and you're very fortunate if you're having a relative that will loan you money. But the fact is, if we wait another year, that's another year you're going to be further and further in the hole. And, I would recommend that if they can get a monthly income, that's really much more important than the back benefits that they might get. So it doesn't come up very often, but it does occasionally come up, and it's certainly something to be aware of.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think everyone wants to win these cases as quickly as possible. And I just before I leave this subject,
Yeah.
I want folks to know that lawyers, just because you hire an attorney or a law firm, they cannot make your case faster by the pure fact that you're now represented.
That's
Any lawyer or attorney who tells you by hiring an attorney, by hiring me, I can make your case faster. There are actual legal regulations on how you can kind of skip the line, and hiring a lawyer is not one of them, right?
right.
So if you think that hiring a lawyer is going to make your case go faster, that's not true.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, I wanted folks to know, like, we're not dragging cases out, but we can't speed them up by just hiring. There are legal rules, which we can do a whole nother video on how to expedite a case. But hiring a lawyer doesn't do it.
No, not even whoever the lawyer is, not even a former judge. I can't get a case heard any faster than you can just because I was a judge. That makes no difference. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So let's jump into the topic of what's kind of the first thing that people should look for when hiring an attorney?
I would think the number one thing is experience. Because Social Security law, for you and I who've been doing it for years, it's pretty straightforward and simple. But for a lawyer who hasn't done Social Security work, it can be a real snake pit. And there are a lot of ways to mess up a case. There are a lot of ways to not properly present it. And it's so experience. And I think it's important that that the public know and the people know that they have every right to question their lawyer, somebody they're considering hiring as their lawyer, what their experience is. How many cases have they done? How long have they been doing it? Uh, yeah, I think that's very important.
What's your experience, not just with handling cases at application, reconsideration, but what is your real life experience of going in front of an administrative law judge that does Social Security law? The hearings themselves are extremely important in that experience. Is
Yes.
there like I remember kind of doing my first hearings, and and luckily, like I said, I got to see thousands of hearings before I even did my first hearing. I kind of understood how it all worked. And I did, jury cases as a public defender and criminal defense and all that. So I was able to kind of walk in with that trial experience. You've seen people without trial experience or without kind of that, they kind of just come out and they do just straight hearings straight out of law school or the first. How does that go over in your experience?
Um, I'm reminded of a case, the first year I was a judge, and the representative was extremely nervous. It was his first case. And he had never been in court before. And he got up to talk and knocked all of his papers off the table onto the floor. And things just went from bad to worse. And now I think back on it, it's kind of comical, but for that representative, I'm not sure that he did his client much of a favor. He was an intelligent lawyer. He just he didn't understand the process, and he didn't know, the sequential evaluation that is required to be, gone through. Yeah, so an inexperienced lawyer can make a huge difference, whereas an experienced lawyer, for one thing, it creates a lot of ease in the client's mind if they know that their lawyer has substantial experience doing Social Security disability cases.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple things too. Like we just kind of know we have resources as experienced attorneys. And in our firm, I'll give a quick little like sales pitch, I guess, for lack of a better word. In our firm, those that do hearings have over 10 years of experience doing hearings.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one attorney in our firm that does a bulk of hearings for us. Now we have one attorney who focuses on federal court, but even she's been doing it for now almost 4 or 5 years, and every once in a while we'll cover a hearing. But we kind of know one of the things that experience brings is not only do you know things like the sequential evaluation or the listings or understanding how to give an opening statement or cross-examine both either a vocational or expert witness, but it's knowing your audience. It's knowing who this judge is,
Yes.
understanding like this judge wants a memo before the hearing. This judge wants an opening statement that's like, 10 words or less. And this judge, you to outline a case very thoroughly or, and so knowing your audience is important. And we have resources and of course we don't know every single judge in the country, but we have resources to kind of look those judges up, understand their decision-making process, their numbers, for lack of a better word. What do they pay a lot? Do they pay not? And just how to approach. And the most experienced judges or experienced lawyers, like kind of at our firm, we have a ton of experienced lawyers, can walk in too with an audience, but know kind of the scale of where this judge is going to lie on and how to approach it just based off of that, right?
Right.
It's like, okay, this judge is going to be a little bit more conservative. I need to present X. This judge is a little bit more liberal. I can just tell by the questioning. I can look at the statistics. I need to present Y, and I think that's a really important factor in these cases.
Well, it is. And, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I know many of these judges for many years, and that helps immensely. It really does. Some of them I've trained. So it's an added layer of experience that,
I was just talking to someone about how you've trained some of the current judges, especially in our region, up here, in the Pacific Northwest. Like you literally trained, some of the judges. So, which is, an added value. You've been to judges school. I would encourage people who haven't seen your, kind of the behind the scenes of what it's like to be an administrative law judge in Social Security, to go watch that because, it is interesting. Like
Yeah.
you know, behind the scenes, all the judges are back in the back offices together and just sort of, on some levels get to know each other or maybe not, and, but yeah, and judges school, they literally have a Social Security judges school. So I agree. I think experience is really important when looking to hire a law firm or an attorney. Uh,
Mhm.
and yeah, and we'll go from there. So number 2 we said was communication with
Right.
your law firm and or lawyer. And we're going to talk about that. So maybe you can address that, why you put it up at number 2, and then I can go from there.
Okay. I think it's very important that